3, 2, 1. Hi, I'm Coach Joe Avezzano. Coaching young athletes is a big responsibility and it has a lot of rewards. So I'm going to give you some of my tips on how to run drills to help your athletes.
Get on down there.
Well, he didn't walk in out of a butcher shop and start coaching special teams for the Dallas Cowboys.
Man, it doesn't get any higher than winning a national championship. It doesn't get any lower than being the losingest coach in Division I football.
I've gotten my butt kicked before, and so have they.
It was a time where not everybody was built to play on special teams.
He was down to earth, downright dirty. He was downright fair.
What did you call? You no good!
Favor the Cowboys. Joe Avezzano had something up his short sleeves this week, didn't he?
What? Joe would not have been singing in some bar working for me.
You can't have a career in the NFL if you don't get one started.
Oh! What a run!
Best way to get one started is by participating in the kicking game.
Roger takes the snap, pumps it once. He's going long.
When I first took the job in '89, Alan Lowry, who was a tight end coach, he had worked with special teams. And Alan did a nice job, but I wanted somebody to totally concentrate on special teams. Back then, the special teams coach, he was usually the tight end coach or the assistant offensive line coach, etc. And so I had the idea to have a special teams coordinator. And so I called Joe one night. I said, Joe, I've got this idea. I want a special teams coordinator, and I want to offer you the job. Now, listen, this is not an offensive line job. It's not a defensive job. It's special teams only. And Joe kind of paused, and he said, well, let me get back to you. I hung up the phone. I'm thinking, what in the hell is going on? The guy's out of a job. I said, and he doesn't want to come to the Cowboys. What in the hell's going on? Well, about 30 minutes later, Joe calls me and says, I'll take the job. That's it.
Texas Stadium, Irving, Texas. A sellout crowd on hand for the renewal of one of the NFL's long-running rivalries. The Dallas Cowboys and the defending Super Bowl champion Washington Redskins open their 1992 seasons on Monday Night Football.
This was Coach Joe's third year. The entire team trying to take that next level. Offense had been great. Defense was getting great. Let's find out if the special teams can get there too.
I used to talk to the team. I'd say, guys, we got to win 2 of the 3 phases. So I talked to Joe. I said, Joe, we've got to make something happen to change the momentum on special teams.
And Joe knew when to pull the trigger and when to push for an opportunities for his team to make that kind of impact.
Kelly Goodburn sets up at the back of the end zone, fields the high snap, and the kick is blocked out of the end zone. It's 2-0 Dallas. Isaac Holt with the block.
Special teams coach Joe Avezzano told us before the game, depending on field position, they would go after him.
Troy, Emmett, Mike, all those guys are going to do their job on offense. I need to play as hard as I can on defense, but that third phase could change the outlook of the game.
Saxon angles it, and that is a beauty.
That
is just plain old perfect.
Joe sets the tone. Other teams knew we was going to be tough on special teams. It's hard to beat a prepared team. And they got a punt, and we had the best punt returner, K. Martin.
And then it's his best kick of the night in terms of yards in the air. And Martin runs it back from the 20. He's out in front. Martin's going to go all the way for a Dallas touchdown. No flag.
And when it's all said and done, the kicking game has provided the Cowboys with 9 points.
Well, Joe Avezzano's special teams last year were outstanding. He was chosen the special teams coach of the year, and special teams winning this football game tonight.
It was a blowout in a sense of we came to play in all 3 phases, but the expectation was that we were always going to win that 3rd phase of the game in the special teams units.
All right, listen up. Hey, listen up real quick. Great effort by everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. You know, the players, all 47 of you, the coaches, you worked very hard for this.
I'll never forget talking to Coach Johnson, and he said, you know, when I hired Avi, he was a guy that allowed me to say, okay, I know special teams is taken care of. I'm still gonna keep my eye on it, but I have tremendous faith and trust in Joe to be able to handle this portion of the team.
But, you know, he didn't walk in out of a butcher shop and start coaching special teams for the Dallas Cowboys. He was a really, really good football coach at a very high level for a long time for some great coaches.
My name is Tony Avezzano. I'm the son of Coach Joe Avezzano, and I'm a talent buyer here in Dallas-Fort Worth. Dad was born and lived in Yonkers, New York, moved to Miami, Florida, where he was, really grew up. He went to Miami-Jackson High School and then on to Florida State. More than them telling me stories was me giving him a hard time, telling him that there's no way he was ever that good, and I can't believe he was an offensive lineman. His dad was only about 6 foot and about around 200 pounds for most of my life, so it was hard to believe that he was a center and a guard. Biggest thing that he always said is how short the NFL career was. He hurt his knee, but always talked about the Boston Patriots, and again, what an opportunity it was to play in the NFL. Got an offer to go coach and then never turned back.
There is more to Iowa State University than just its buildings. It is education through experience.
First time I saw him, when he came to Ames, Iowa, it was -20 weather-wise. And I kind of laughed, the way he was dressed, saying, I don't know if you're a football coach dressing in Levi's and T-shirt.
I heard stories of Coach Majors bringing Coach Sherrill and my dad into his office and telling them to tone down the partying.
Well, Joe was the best man in my wedding. And there are probably still stories in Ames, Iowa about Joe and myself. Coach Majors used to say, I should have fired you a lot of times, but I couldn't replace you. But on that staff, we had Jimmy Johnson, Joe Avezzano, myself, and Coach Majors. I was coaching in my early coaching days at Iowa State for Johnny Majors. And back then, you didn't have just one total squad. Johnny hired Joe Avezzano as the freshman coach. I remember one time, Johnny and I were sitting in the press box just watching the game. And Joe, he was a very emotional guy, and so he was on the sideline for this game with the freshmen. And so a call went against him. He took his headset and he slammed it down to the ground. And Johnny says, he's gonna pay for that headset.
Before he came to Dallas, I'll be honest, I'd never really heard the term special teams. It was always kicking game. And Dad was always around the kicking game. So, Coach Majors to me is really a huge part of him later becoming a special teams coach.
You did not want to coach defensive backs or the kicking game for Coach Majors. you got an earful. And then when we went to Pittsburgh, it gave us the opportunity to build Pitt, which had won 3 games in the last 3 years. And 4 years later, you win the national championship. Of course, we recruited a little old kid out of Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, by the name of Tony Dorsett.
Tony Dorsett is unbelievable. They talk about size. He's run the football more than anybody in the history of college football and never missed a game. A lot of people talk about speed, but there's not a whole lot of people that actually run that fast. Tony Dorsett happens to be one of them.
And I'd never seen these until about a week ago when I was digging through boxes. But these 2 pictures, University of Pittsburgh versus Navy, the day Tony Dorsett broke the NCAA rushing record, the day he broke the rushing record, Dad was the offensive coordinator at Pitt that year, and they won the national championship. And it's the same year that I was born.
When Coach left and went to Tennessee, he went with Coach Majors.
Ironically enough, one of the guys on that Tennessee team was Bill Bates, who ended up playing for Coach Joe and working with him with the Cowboys.
Now, at Tennessee, that's when he got really infatuated with the country music.
2 gold records, one from Neil McCoy, literally presented to Dad. And then same thing from Toby Keith, who was a good friend.
He was a flamboyant guy, and he just was a good person and a good guy, and I'm not surprised that everybody liked him.
Join the Oregon State Beavers this Saturday as they play their home opener against the Washington Huskies. The Beavers have a dynamic new head coach in Joe Avezzano, a new staff, and
another really cool picture. This is my dad's coaching staff at Oregon State. A fantastic picture of Coach Campo when he had his fro.
When Joe got the head coaching job at Oregon State, I was at Boise State, and he called me and said, hey, I'd love you to come over. And I was only there 1 year, and it was when I really knew I loved football, because we went 0-11, and I was coaching harder than the 11th game than I was in the first game.
Those years were really tough because he loved the opportunity. It was just a really rough patch for Oregon State.
And Oregon State is not an easy place to win because of the recruiting. You're not going to beat Southern Cal, UCLA, Stanford or Cal on players.
It may seem facetious to think that our football team got beat 42-14, but that's better than 45-0 of the previous year. Told our team, I've gotten my butt kicked before, and so have they, and they'll probably happen again. But there won't anybody make us bow our head to them.
I was at practice every day and on the field and running around, and was old enough to know the difference between winning and losing, and also old enough to understand the public criticism that went along with it.
Well, obviously, he wasn't happy. You know, none of us were happy. I think it wore on him as it went.
And just the wear and tear of 5 years of just getting your teeth kicked in really wore him down.
When you're a head coach, it doesn't matter whether you're in junior high, high school, pro ball. When you're not successful, the pressure continues to mount. After that, kind of relaxed him, gave him an opportunity to be the old Joe, and he showed it, and it helped our players.
If you know Coach Sherrill at all, man, when he walks into a room, there's no mistaking who's in charge. And so I know he was really excited to be reunited with a dear friend.
Well, the old saying, you can't hire your best friend. That's not true. I didn't ever have to correct Joe, you know, as a head coach assistant. I never had to ask him to do anything. And that's kind of like the special teams. I didn't ask him to help on special teams. We started the 12th man kickoff team here, which was, they were all walk-ons. I never asked Joe to help, and he was out there every day.
To take a look at this 12-man team, they are very effective.
And they were good. They were #1 in the nation. They were in the top 5 every year.
The biggest thing I remember is the first year that they got to go to the Cotton Bowl and they were going to beat Texas.
Every time we beat Texas was very special.
The Aggies win it 42-10.
There was 4 or 5 of us coaches' kids that ran around on the sidelines and stuff, and Coach Sherrill had this huge pile of cotton brought in for after the Texas game, and just running in the locker room and throwing the cotton and seeing how happy everybody was to be going to the Cotton Bowl and what a big deal it was.
Is on their way to the Cotton Bowl to face Auburn on New Year's Day.
A&M was really on the verge of being an absolute power, before that went away. The year in between A&M and Coach Johnson hiring him with the Cowboys, out of all the years that I was old enough to know what was going on, was the darkest, toughest year I ever saw him go through, not knowing what was going to be next. Now, on the opposite end of that meant I got to spend a ton of time with him. He came to all my games. He was always around. There was a stretch when I played football in junior high where we would sit and he would film my junior high football games and basketball games, and we would come home and watch film. And that was the root of, I don't know about fights, but again, at 12 or 13, you just feel like you're getting picked apart, and that wasn't cool. But he never coached. Thank God he never coached one of my teams. I got to spend some time with Coach Johnson, and he told me a story I had never heard, and that he had called Dad and offered to put him on the staff, and Dad told him he would call him back. And hearing that, I was like, said he would call you back? I can't believe he wasn't halfway to Dallas before you got off the phone with him. He couldn't wait. Now, the Cowboys at that time, if you were going to take your pick, probably were not at the top of the list. It's not like they were coming off Super Bowls and you were going to walk into, this great team. There was a tough couple years there.
Usually the days of practice would start with a special teams meeting. And the special teams meeting was usually at 8 in the morning. At 7:50, Joe would lock the door. And if you weren't in by 7:50, you were late.
Okay, let's follow up and talk a little bit about kicking game.
I like his old saying, don't be on time, be early.
Yeah, you would have to know Abby back then and know who he was and how adamant he was about being the best special teams.
Very good effort. Good results. Not overly spectacular, but very good results.
I can remember being in games and saying, I don't want to be the guy tomorrow when Abby has that clicker and he says, why did you do this? Why weren't you giving 100%? If you weren't going to meet the expectation, you weren't playing on Coach Abby's special teams.
It's an attitude. It's not just about talent, because we've got talent.
I wanted our total team to be involved with special teams. So I think that elevated, the special teams as far as their performance.
I certainly hope that we've been paying attention to ourselves. I don't give a shit who we're playing.
Everyone had to be in the special teams meetings. Michael Irvin had to be in the special teams meeting. Troy Aikman was in the meetings. They used to watch the same film, and they knew how important it was.
Everybody had to see how important it was, and that was always, that's part of the camaraderie.
We can win the kicking game. Now it's time to do it.
That's it. That's it. Get it all right. Come on now, move. That's a good job. There it is. Not a way to work. Not a way to work.
When the ball goes, you'll see the ball. You'll see them. I want this guy retreating over here and blocking them this way. If I throw the point over here and block him that way. Just put the hat in there. I want to see one technique right now. Yep. All right. Go back. Go. All right. Get off of it. Get off. Fight off of him.
Yeah, Norton. Yeah, Norton.
Now, Norton, right there, that's the picture right there, because they're going to grab you. You don't like it, we don't like it. They don't call it.
Coach Avezzano demanded that he have starters on his special teams. Darren Woodson played, Hub played, Deion was a kick returner, because he knew the special team play was just as important as offensive defense.
Joe didn't need to worry about the kicker. Steve Hoffman would find them, he would coach them, and Joe would just kind of run the show.
Go! Get on down there! Get on down there! Get on down there! Line them up and get across the space! Get us, Jack! Get on!
And they had guys make a name for themselves on special teams.
And Bill Bates, who was already at Dallas.
Daryl Johnson on kickoff return, on punt team.
We had Matt Vanderbeek. Matt Vanderbeek was outstanding on special teams.
Kenny Gant became the shark.
You had to get on the field, and this was my opportunity to get on the field. So where was I gonna make an impact? Why not in special teams?
Find the ball! Find the ball! Find it! Find it! All right.
And Joe, everything he did was, by the book and tough, and I think that was, special teams became a very important part of our team here in Dallas, but it's a huge part.
Emmett, Troy, Mike Irvin, they never started one game. I started every game because I was on the kickoff team. They just a second string. They just came in after I started the game.
I can tell you, the intensity level for special teams was no different than our offense and our defense.
Field in good shape. Carter gets down to about the 43. Carter and Woodson don't have too many compliments for each other.
The problem I had with Joe, I had the strength coach or somebody that always kept me back off the field. Please, Joe was always 10 yards in front of me on the field hollering and screaming at the officials. I said, Joe, just take care of the special teams. You don't have to be hollering at the officials.
Hey, you out there to punish people, man. And I had took on the shark characteristics. I just want to see blood.
There's the shark dance.
What I did with Joe is every week I said, give me the best fake punt we got.
Fake punt for Dallas.
Give me the best fake field goal we got.
Snap, and they hand it to Cedar, and Cedar runs it in. Touchdown.
Let's take a look at onside kick.
Onside kick. Cowboys are saying we got it, and they do.
I said, let's look at the punt block.
I'm really happy for them because it tends to set the mood for the ball club when we do something on a special team.
We were playing in Indianapolis. We went, third down, we didn't make it, and so the players come off the sideline. Troy comes up to me, and Troy said, what the hell are we doing? We go for it. We can make it. We can make it. And I looked at him. About that time, they snapped the ball to Novacek, and he ran it in for a touchdown.
And a touchdown. Novacek goes in. Well,
I said, hey, we know what we're doing. Don't worry about it, Troy.
Joe Avezzano had something up his short sleeves this week, didn't he?
Well, they were really good, but anytime you're playing on special teams, when you're looking for that big play, doesn't matter what the position is, you're going to give up some plays as well, and that's just what happened.
Dallas player touched the ball.
Ironically enough, for the Cowboys, some of the special teams plays that went against them happened in the biggest of games.
Dallas Cowboys are back in the Super Bowl 27 in Pasadena, California.
Super Bowl, I tell people all the time, it lived up to everything you imagined.
They call him Kelvin Martin back at the Cowboy 20 from the 14. And Steve Tasker.
We're in this game, we're backed up.
Dallas 3 and out.
And we had seen every scheme of Buffalo's on our punt team, and they had a guy named Steve Tasker.
I think without question, the highlight of their kicking game is Steve Tasker.
Normally lined up on the outside where I was.
To their credit, Marv Levy knew that we had a substitute on our punt team. They went right there at that spot.
Back at the 38. Oh, Marcelli blocked. Steve Tasker. Oh, my.
And I can, to this day, I can hear that doo-doo sound. And I remember getting to the sideline, you would think that Joe Avezzano would just lay into us, and he was just the opposite. He just said, hey, look, we need to let that go, move on, and the rest of the game, we got to figure out how to win the rest of this game.
touchdown, Jimmy Jones, 14-7. Lamb again.
People say Peanut, that guy from Chicago, started. And we was doing that way before Peanut started playing football. And so in the game, you don't even think about it. You just punch at the ball. Next thing you know, it comes out.
Stripped away by Gant, 29. No doubt he's trying to knock that ball.
Who's having fun?
They go back to big day as Super Bowl champion. Dallas 52, Buffalo 17.
Me and my dad were walking literally to the middle of the field, 50-yard line of the Rose Bowl. And I just kept looking at him, and he hadn't smiled, like no emotion, and I had to shake him. Fireworks going off, and I was like, Pop, y'all just won the Super Bowl. And it's like it snapped in him, and he turned to look at me, and tears streaming down his face.
What a ride it's been.
I was crying like a baby because I was thinking about every coach that said I was too small, every coach that said I wasn't gonna make it. All this is going, all these emotions was coming out in like 1 minute. That's the only thing I can remember there. And I got a chance to meet Michael Jackson.
And the Dallas Cowboys, 30-13. And the Dallas dynasty is real.
Where's Abby? Where's Abby?
Yeah, the best coaches, somehow they find a way to build relationships with players, and then they really push the players. They're not buddy-buddy all the time. They drive them, they push them, they hold them accountable to the highest standards. But they do it in a way where the player knows that this guy cares about me.
Joe would talk to you like a father figure. Just his personality. You knew you could probably talk to him about anything.
He was down to earth. He was downright dirty. He was downright fair.
Joe had a real respect and a real influence on players. Joe, as much as any coach I've ever seen, shared their ups and downs, not only on the trying times on the field, but off the field. And that's not that he didn't enjoy a great relationship with other coaches.
And that staff was so tight-knit. Those 25 to 30-year relationships were real, and they were really, really good friends.
I think what's really a cool thing is that every single stop that Coach Joe was at, there was a Cowboy connection down the line at some point. At Iowa State, there's Jimmy Johnson. At Pittsburgh, Dave Wanstead, Tony Dorsett, Bill Bates was at Tennessee, Dave Campo at Oregon State, and Kevin Smith even at Texas A&M.
Oh, that's nice. So where'd you get that at?
Joe Brodsky, who was the running backs coach, was my dad's high school basketball coach.
I can remember Avi used to be a little aggressive with his walkthroughs. He'd spend a lot of time and maybe seemingly go over the time limit that he was allotted. I can remember being on the sidelines, we're waiting for this special teams period to finally end, and Brodsky just blurts out, I think it was a Thursday, he said, "We're gonna miss the flight." Like, we're gonna miss the flight to the away game on Saturday. You're taking so long.
Switzer and the special teams coach, Joe Avezzano. Block! It might be Lett again.
Leon Lett is right over the center. Now they are definitely getting some penetration. It is Leon Lett, the left hand. Boy, they did a great job of driving Detroit back.
Well, without question, Joe liked the spotlight.
He liked being around the stars. He liked being around the country singers. He liked being around the top guys on the football team as well.
Tony and I actually went to school together, and I was covering the basketball team for the newspaper, and he was a player on that really good team. And it was very common for Coach Joe to be at the game. But the place shut down when he brought Troy Aikman.
I was a wreck, man. I played terrible. Thank God we won. Probably the worst basketball game I played my entire life because I was so nervous he was there.
You just don't see quarterbacks and special teams coaches really hanging out like that. You know, to get a quarterback for the Cowboys, to be able to drive 2 hours to a basketball game on a Thursday night just goes to show just what that relationship was really like.
3 times in the 90s, the NFL Special Teams Coach of the Year. And you know why?
Do I know why?
Because you're best friends with this guy standing right over here. Ladies and gentlemen, Cowboys quarterback Troy Aikman. Troy, come on in there.
I don't know how the relationship started other than similar interests. Him and Dad were really, really close. That relationship was really special. And I knew that from, you know, the age of 13, 14, 15. And so I always treated it that way. When I would come into the locker room and I would have games where I'd have, 40 in high school and we would lose, and he would call me immediately over to the locker, didn't care about the 40, but would get on to me about the losing. Again, I don't know any different, so I can't compare it to any other kids growing up. It's the coolest upbringing any kid could ever ask for if you're into sports.
Well, Joe's a proud Italian. Joe was very proud of his family. He was very proud of Tony.
He brought Tony to the practice from the time he was little right on up. And he was a great family man.
We saw Tony grow up. We'd follow his basketball career and everything he was doing. Joe would tell us the stories. And, he was raised the right way by Joe and Diane because he understood. He understood what it was like to be in that environment, how he needed to handle himself.
Your success is for the family, but don't lose the family for the success.
If anyone knows Tony Avezzano, they know how much he loves both of his parents. And that's how much Joe loved Tony.
Here's Bonio, the kickoff to Andre Coleman, who's all the way up to the 13 to return this one. 15.
Oh!
And he runs head on to Dallas Cowboy defender Charlie Williams, a 95 draft choice. A speeding locomotive ran into a brick wall there after a 7-yard return, and Williams gets up.
You just don't see that many really clean, solid hits on a return. But Charlie Williams gets through untouched and just unloaded.
He also kind of fancied himself a singer, right? Yeah, okay.
It seemed like I might have heard him once or twice. He was not a good singer.
Have you seen those arms that used to?
Who, Joe? Yeah, he makes sounds.
He was pretty good, but he's better coach.
Joe couldn't sing. But the most important thing is, Joe thought he could sing.
And Joe would get up there and sing the country songs.
Coach Joe Avezzano might be better known for his behind-the-scene work with the boys, but when the spotlight shines on him, the recognition is for his musical talents.
Ain't it funny how a fool with eyes wide open?
We get up there and we do the best we can to honor the music, but we sure have fun doing it.
How was Joe Avezzano as a singer and performer? He had a voice that, obviously it boomed because he talked to players as a coach. But whenever he was gentle about it, whenever he sang, it was actually quite nice.
I think anytime you put yourself to be judged, there's going to be people that like you and there's going to be people that don't. And I've had to learn that because I think we all want everybody to like us, but it doesn't work that way. So am I any good? Guess you're going to have to watch the show and make your own decision.
defense that's been doing it for quite a while.
Maynard with his 4th punt of the game, and it's a wobbly duck caught on a line by Sanders. Dion back whence he started and then turns the corner into Giant territory and leave it to Dion to break it open for a touchdown. What a run!
Oh, man. Joe Avezzano, the Cowboys special teams coach, I'm sure is not saying that's just the way I drew it up.
There is no substitute for winning. I know that's a cliche, but we must win. We will win. Win is the name of the game.
I think at that point it came down to really 2 guys, Coach Joe and Dave Campo. They've both been here the entire decade of the 90s. It was going to come down to one of those guys. We just didn't know which one Jerry was going to pick.
It should be Dave's day and the decision that we've made today. I talked to 2 people on this staff about being head coach, and certainly Dave and Joe Avezzano are the 2.
I wouldn't want to get into that, to be fair to both of them at all. But Joe, certainly his personality, respect on the team, gave him every reason to be considered as a head coach.
I believe my dad had a chance at it. I think he deserved a chance at it, but I also know whatever disappointment there was in not getting it, he thought the world of Coach Campo and was, I know, happy it was him and not somebody else.
I think we both had a great deal of respect for each other. And I think that's the main thing that was important. But he was a national figure, I have to say that. Every time I saw a film of the game, he was standing in front of me when I was a head coach, so.
Chancellor. Flag is down.
Illegal block in the back. Receiving team.
God damn! Who the was that on? Who was that penalty on?
And it was no question in my mind, from a friendship standpoint and an ability standpoint, I wanted him here.
Ah! He went out there with a half attitude. God, Dimitri!
And he wanted to win just as much as I did, so it worked out just fine.
Well, Chandler's kickoff, very short, taken at the 15-yard line. Dantzler up quickly, 25, ran into his own man, Wiley at the 30, and gave yards back. He's still going, actually. 25-yard line, a stiff arm, 30 right sideline, 35 still alive, 40 stepped out of bounds. He's down to midfield. He did not step out of bounds, and he's going to score. Woodrow Dantzler's going to bounce off like a pinball and take this thing 80 yards for a touchdown, and the Cowboys are back in front. I don't know how he stayed in bounds.
That may have been the most unbelievable kickoff return run I have seen. He broke 11 tackles.
Obviously, there are going to be some more changes. That means there's going to be expansion. What's your ideas and what's your feelings about expanding the Arena Football League?
Well, the game will evolve. We've got some things in place that have been very well thought out. 8 or 10 teams geographically placed around the country with good investors, good business people involved, good markets where they want arena football, where there's enthusiasm for it.
So this was early 2000, 2001. We were sitting there, and there was not an arena football team in Dallas, and it made a lot of sense from a marketing perspective of really taking the Dallas Cowboys and expanding those branches, if you will. And so we exercised that option and bought the Arena Football League franchise. Well, we were thinking, boy, Joe Avezzano, here he is with what he represents. Joe is a big personality, and he was very recognizable. The players loved him, very likable, fans loved him. Sure enough, we're in a meeting, and Joe, after the meeting, walks up to me and my dad and says, well, I read where you are looking about getting involved in arena football, and that's something I'd like to get involved with. And that was typical Joe Avezzano.
He called me to an office and kind of up in a weird part of the stadium that I'd never been in. It was like, this is my new office. And he told me about the Desperados, and so quickly we became experts on arena football.
Now, I say one of the biggest things, Joe didn't know the rules of arena football. First thing we did, it was really important to get someone on that staff that knew the game.
reputation preceded himself when I came here, because I came here from Jacksonville, and the big thing is you're going to be coaching with Joe Avezzano, and I had seen him and knew of the stories. And when I first walked in the first staff meeting, our job was to educate Joe on arena football, and he educated us before we educated him.
It's a good call! God Danny ran right into the What did you call? You no good! Jesus Christ, how f***ing dumb are we? Don't ask him! That son of a gun! That's rut!
Yeah, there were some cuss words that I'd not heard before that and haven't heard since.
Was offside.
Oh,
He wasn't NFL guys. He was dealing with different personalities because he was rough and brash, but then he also let guys know, hey, I really care about you.
That's a hell of a job. Great job. Wonderful job. Just keep throwing them up there, big boy. That's one of the best memories you'll have right there.
A great head coach in the fact that he could lead players, he could lead men. People got excited about playing for him. He kept the culture and the energy of the team.
I'm ecstatic that I was involved in a venture like this to where we started something from scratch and we were able to lead the league in attendance, make the playoffs, and do a lot of very positive things.
That means we got really something to go out there and play for.
And then it was tricky because you needed Joe to stay the special teams coach of the Cowboys. And so you were studying the calendar, seeing how it would overlap. Said, well, training camp starts the 26th and we go to the playoffs. As a first-year expansion team, said, we'll just take that problem on when it comes. Well, sure enough, it's arrived and we're in the middle of it.
I don't need time off. I've had time off in my career. I like working better. That's the better alternative.
Here's your chance to take home one of the best coaches in professional football. Buy a 2003 Dallas Desperado season ticket and get an autographed Coach Joe bobblehead doll.
You really think this looks like me?
I mean, he'd been here 13 years. They've had all kinds of success. He's been with 4 different head coaches. He's doing the Desperados for a year. I mean, everything's going well, but the NFL is a business, and change is inevitable. It catches up to all of us.
I probably know more than I should about the end of it. Again, I'm biased. I also was around the sport long enough to understand the business side of it. When a new head coach or a new GM comes in, they bring their own people.
I want to introduce Bill Parcells, the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
And so when Parcells came in, to me it wasn't surprising that he made a change.
I think the staff, from a numerical standpoint, will be moderately reduced in numbers. I'll certainly make consideration to the coaches here that were here in Dallas and talk with some of them, probably not all, but some, and we'll just see where it goes from there.
Do I think they should have kept him? Of course. Did he want to be here? Absolutely.
Terrific job of delivering the ball quickly. Here's Kubiak again, going for the end zone. Easy touchdown that time for Cowboys. I believe there'll be a few more scores. It may change a few more times. Do you think so?
Yeah.
One more time. Gets that 3-step drop, the back foot, the ball is gone. So perfect timing by Jim Kubiak.
He came to me one day and was like, hey, I want to do something together. And we had no idea what it was going to be, but start some sort of business together. I don't remember how the idea of a bar came about, but we closed on this bar to do together. And 3 days after we signed the papers, he takes a job with the Raiders and moves to California for 3 years. I was always very proud to be my father's son, but also wanted to carve out my own niche. And by that time, I had become a huge fan of the Texas country music scene. That's how we started booking live music at this little dart bar in Louisville.
Coach Joe's hat tricks So you walk in and you see this mural of Joe back in the day doing the Heisman almost. There's a couple of dartboards, there's a shotgun bar, and at the very end, through some crowd setting, there was a stage. And sometimes you might even catch Tony Avezzano on the top of the bar, sliding you a shot. It's a few people that you can actually call real friends or family on the road. I always felt like they treated me like a son. And so that was really special. You always wanted to come back home.
One of our good friends named Tyler Bryant has a band called Tyler Bryant and the Shakedown, and he made Rolling Stone, and he listed hat tricks of all the places he had played in the country and said the place just has mojo. For our little bitty sports bar in Louisville to be mentioned in Rolling Stone was a really, really big deal.
My pregame would be a Jaeger bomb. And I said, here's one for you. And he's like, I'm not taking one. I said, you're on the bus, you gotta take one. And he said, all right, but if you tell my son, I'm gonna kick your ass. But he'd take the shot. I'd give him a hug. He said, all right, you ready? And he would walk me in and give me this 20-minute get on your feet like motivation, like he was fixing to play the Super Bowl or something.
Anybody who played hat tricks at that time will still tell you about my dad introducing them on stage. And these introductions would be 10 minutes long.
Now, you better do this right. Ladies and gentlemen, Country Music Hall of Famer, Charlie Pride.
But he always gave me credit for it, and I hated it. I would go hide in the kitchen.
Now, first of all, Tony wanted me to announce that we have Adam Hood.
And it's almost like he knew at that time by propping me up to everybody in that place that he was setting me up for my next step, which, I don't know that he knew, but it sure seems like he knew.
He's kind of long-winded.
I continue to connect with him, and he stays close to me as through this music journey that we're on.
It could have been a mountain of dirt, and it would have been a castle. It would have been a castle.
Coach Joe is an entertainer. He could be on the sidelines. He could be on the stage singing at his bar. But at the end of the day, coach is coach. You can't have Coach Joe without the coach part. And so he'd been out of the game for a little bit, but you never know where the next opportunity is going to come from.
So the chance to go back to the motherland, obviously it doesn't get much more Italian than Avezzano.
Joe Avezzano coaching in Italy, how perfect is that? It had to happen at some point.
The schedule there as far as football was not heavy compared to what we're used to here. They practice 1 or 2 times a week and a game once a week. And so he was able to spend a lot of time enjoying the beautiful city of Milan with my mother. It drove him crazy because there was a language barrier, and obviously intensity is part of who he is. And so the kind of laid back part of it drove him crazy.
Quick. Blue 28. Blue 28. Hey! Okay.
That's who he was, right? He's a football guy, and it didn't matter to him. Certainly he loved being part of the Dallas Cowboys, but, he loved coaching football.
We are not just playing for us.
Non stiamo giocando solo per noi.
We are playing for the many people that have tried for many years.
Stiamo giocando per tutti quelli che tengono a questa maglia.
But again, getting to spend that kind of time with my mom in Italy, where our family is from, was huge to him.
Tutti su con le mani! 1, 2, 3, sì!
He would call between 9 and 9:30 every day, and the most normal conversation. I had actually just made plans to go over and see him. over all the years of his coaching, whenever it was bad, I was always give him a hard time and go, well, do you want me to play? Which of course he would always say, absolutely not, we'll get crushed if you play. This one conversation, he was like, if you want to come over and play, you got a spot, which he had never said that before. And again, just normal. He wasn't feeling bad, wasn't sick, was getting ready to go work out and then go to practice. And about, I don't know, an hour later, I got a phone call from an Italy number that wasn't the one that I knew. And I knew before I picked up the phone that something was wrong. He had passed from a heart attack while he was running on the treadmill. The hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life is telling my mom that my dad had passed away.
We have said goodbye to former Cowboys special teams coach Joe Avezzano, and it's still incredibly hard to think we won't ever see or hear him again. I'm not a big fan of any memorial service. I'd prefer to have my friend back. But the words of Brad Sham were brilliant. His son Tony, every bit as good, but there is no good way, and certainly no easy way to say goodbye.
Anybody that was around Coach Joe, and he came into the room and he lit it up.
He had this unique ability to make everybody feel important when they were around him. And when you left Joe, you usually had a smile on your face.
If you live long enough, you get more of those than you want, of learning of the passing of someone for whose passing you were not prepared.
It wasn't very easy. To me, he was a great friend, but to the players, he was more than a player's coach.
One of the greatest honors I will ever have in my life was when Tony and Diane asked me to speak at his funeral.
If you were around Joe, I think there were two things you learned from him. You learned what it was like to have a friend, and you learned how to love your life.
And in no surprise to anyone who knew him, Coach Joe's casket, cowboy blue with silver trim.
And it's my dad's last jab at me, but I felt I had to speak at the funeral because I knew him better than anybody.
There was never a day that I would get off the phone with him, ever, that he didn't tell me how much he loved me, and I didn't tell him the same thing.
Looking out to the Joneses and Aikman and my mom and Emmett and all that, you know, Jackie came in town and R.C. Slocum came in town. It was nuts to sit there and talk in front of that group of people.
As my father's son, I was always fighting for my own identity. I think that's why I played basketball instead of football, but also juggled that with being his biggest fan.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Bowl champion, three-time quarterback, Troy Aikman.
First of all, let me say it's really great to be here this evening. I know we're here to pay honor and tribute to a very special person and a lot of people of ours' lives that are here tonight, and probably long overdue. But I got to tell you, a friend of mine, Norv Turner, who some of you may be aware of, he once said to me, sometimes you need to be reminded that the jobs that we have are the jobs that we dreamed of having as kids. And you need to realize that and enjoy the moment. Joe Avezzano every day got up and went into the office knowing that he was fulfilling a dream, and he wanted to be a football coach. And for 13 years with the Dallas Cowboys, he was as good a football coach, coaching special teams, as there was in the National Football League. I think it becomes very obvious that Joe's had a tremendous impact on a lot of people.
As far as I know, I'm not going to be coming this way again. And why not do something that you can have pleasure with and hopefully other people have pleasure with? Because I'd hate to look back and say, boy, I had that opportunity and I could have, but to me those are sad words. Could have, should have. And at least in this case, I'm grasping it and having fun with it. That's the key word.
He never took it for granted. And I can tell you all these years later, our family doesn't take it for granted. He was such a positive light in this community. We miss him dearly. And the fact that 13 years later, we're sitting here doing this, or random guy on the street sends me a message about my father, or you still hear it on the ticket every once in a while, you know, Coach Joe is on there. Man, it's so awesome. I'm so proud to be his son. I'm so proud to be talking about him. And I will never say no to talking about my father.
So many other coaches are responsible for my development as a player. Joe Avezzano. Joe's been a great friend to me and my family for many years, and I thank him for his support throughout my career.
Joe Avezzano, I know he's looking down on us also.
So I got a lot of thank yous. Joe Avezzano.
Coach Joe Avezzano, who's probably knocked 3 or 4 years off my career for playing so many special teams, but I love him anyway.
Joe Avezzano, the one coach in our staff that he spends as much time with the players as the head coach, you know, being on special teams. And you know, thank you for leaving me on kickoff return for 8 years.
Yeah, just look at me.